Hello and a windy welcome back to the channel of nonsense and an update on my 2025 Yamaha Tenere 700 Rally, a bike which I've done 1,200 miles on now, and in that time it's given me some of the best experiences I've ever had on two wheels. And I don't just mean because it's really easy to balance the KFC bucket on the seat, though it is. This video is going to be a little bit out of sequence, and I apologise for that, because I'm going to be talking about a tour which I filmed, but I've not put the video series out yet because I've not finished editing it. So I'm going to be talking about going off-roading in France. I might drop in some sneak peeks, but yeah, I just want to update you on the bike because I know lots of you are contemplating getting one of these and they're landing in dealers finally. So I'm putting this video out first. Civic duty or something. Before we begin, I should point out that nearly all of the miles I've done on this bike, 1,200, were done in a 5-day period in France on an off-road trip on the Tete, where we fell off twice, we crossed rivers, we ate a lot of croissants, pain au chocolat, and had an amazing time. And that video series, as I said, is coming out. But yeah, I picked this up at about 3 p.m, 3 weeks ago today, and at 8 p.m. I was on the road down to Portsmouth to get on the ferry. So bear in mind that this hasn't seen much road use. Okay, just a quick reminder of what this is. This is an £11,400 2025 Tenere 700 Rally. The Rally bit's important. That means it sits higher than the standard Tenere. It's got slightly posher off-road focused suspension. It's got this high-mounted beak. It has got that 4mm thick bash plate down there, and it's got a different mode on the dashboard, and it sits at 910mm, the seat. So it's taller, it's more off-road focused, and in this blue, I think it looks, well, deeply erotic, which is why I bought it. No, I bought it to go on off-road adventures. But anyway, let's get into the first thing that I found a bit tricky when I first got this bike. On my trip around France, I was wearing what you see now, except under these trousers, I didn't just have knee armour, I took that out, and I was wearing my Liat C-frame hybrid knee braces because I don't really trust my skills off-road, and the last thing I want to do is bust a knee. So with that, you kind of get slightly less mobility, not much, but it's a bit more clunky. And then I had luggage on the bike. I swear by Krieger stuff. I always have done. I know it's fully waterproof and I know it's robust enough to last decades. So Krieger very kindly sent me the Tenere OS base, which is essentially a rig system that goes over here. You hook it onto these points here, which are aftermarket, and then it clips down here and you have two side panniers. That was fine, except I then put my old Krieger US 20 dry pack on the back, which sat up here and gave it a little bit of height. I'm 6'3". With all my luggage on it, I could not swing my leg over this bike with these boots and my knee braces on without kicking the bejesus out of my luggage. So it got to the stage where I had to do the old GS thing of handlebars on full lock, stand on the peg, and then go over like you're about to go on road patrol on your GS adventure. So even though I'm what I consider quite tall, this is a seriously intimidatingly tall bike. Look, I can flat foot it now, but depending on what I'm wearing underneath here, it's a bit tippy-toey at times. And when you're off-road, it's caught me out once or twice. And also, it has got that Tenere classic thing of being a bit top-heavy at slow speeds. Yes, they have moved the fuel tank forwards and down a little bit for this 2025 model, but I noticed it just riding here on the road. When you come up to a T-junction, you know that last kind of 4 miles an hour, as you bleed it off, you try and keep your feet up and not put them down. This, especially on knobbly tyres, you want to have your feet ready to go down. It does feel a little bit wobbly at times. So yes, the height of it has been a little bit intimidating, but on the internet, the thing that seems to be getting people's goat about this 2025 model, the electronics. Here's why those people are wrong. Yes, this year Yamaha added a ride-by-wire throttle and traction control to the Tenere, which was always a fundamental basic bike. But now look, we've got this, we've got riding modes, except they are just two throttle maps. Power 1, which is Sport, and Power 2, which is Explore. That's not really an issue. You just leave that in Sport most of the time. Apart from at the end of days when I've been really tired off-road, I might slip it into Explore to soften the throttle. Yeah, you fire and forget. You don't need to discount the entire bike because it's got electronics. Now, secondly, it's got traction control, which you might have seen there, but you can set that up however you want. However you want, as in off or on. Now it's a road bias traction control system, so you don't want it on when you're off-road anyway. And what you do is you just press and hold this button here, which says APS. And this is new because that button, while it's always been on a Tenere, it used to only turn it back on. You used to have to go through the menus to turn it off. But now look, you're at a standstill, you press and hold that button, and it turns the ABS and traction control off. If you want it, you can set it up how you want it actually. So at the moment it's currently keeping traction on. I'll just nip that off and then that's it. ABS, you can still keep the front ABS on if you want, but that button is brilliant. Look, everything back on. Oh, I've come to a trail, everything off. I don't see how that is a bad implementation of electronics. It's super easy to disable them. One thing that is going to annoy people, the indicators, I've got used to them. They're absolutely fine. It just takes a day of riding to get used to the slightly weird switch layout. But yeah, that is not a problem. So the electronics aren't really a problem. However, there are some bugs in the software. One specifically where the instant fuel range readout will sometimes stick on like 999 or 299.9 mpg, and as such your average mpg readout always ends up pretty much at 300 mpg. So there's just a bug. I don't know what it is, but obviously it doesn't do 300 miles per gallon. The other thing is the fuel gauge, like the one on my MT10, is a little bit useless. It goes down suddenly, then quite quickly, then it slows down again, and there's no fuel light. So actually, when you do get down to minimum, the last bar of the fuel gauge starts flashing. Not particularly aggressively, it's not particularly bright, it's easy to miss. But that said, I have ridden this for about 20 kilometers on the fuel blippy flash thing, and I still had 3 litres to go. So yeah, I will say about fuel consumption, you'll get about 200 miles to a tank if you ride it normally. If you're sitting at high motorway speeds, like 85 miles an hour as I did in France, that tanks the fuel economy and you'll get about 150 miles to a tank instead. So just something to be aware of. Not very aerodynamic. On knobblies, it rinses fuel economy at higher speeds. Okay, if you're looking at buying one of these, I would say do it, especially if you want to mix touring and off-road riding. It has been an absolute blast. And I really like riding it on twisty back roads as well, even with off-road tyre pressures. We'll talk about that in a minute. One thing that I would recommend doing though, if you're going to do any off-roading whatsoever, is ditch the stock bar muffs. They're new painted plastic ones for this year, and apparently they're a bit more brittle than before, and I smashed a pair on the press launch just by having a slow speed tumble in soft sand. So first thing I would do, get bark busters, don't mess about. They're about 150 quid, and they take about 20-30 minutes to fit on both sides, and they're rock solid. As you can see, I've taken some chunks out of them. The bike has been down on this side twice, and yeah, those have saved my levers. What you don't want to be doing is falling off on the standard bar ends and doing your levers in, smashing them, because then you're a bit stuffed. Next thing I want to talk about is how my Tenere is wearing its miles, and it's a bit of a mixed bag at the back end. So as I said, I've been running that Krieger luggage, and I have to say it has worn quite a lot of this yellow and blue away from this rear panel here, which I don't mind. It's patina, I don't care about that. It's a tool for adventuring. I think that kind of looks cool. It's a little bit of a shame that Yamaha hasn't given us proper motocross plastics that are dyed the same colour all the way through. So where this blue rubs off, it just goes black, which looks a bit naff, but I guess at the end of the day, it's not an outrageously expensive bike, but it would have been nice if those plastics were blue all the way through. Now this damage up here is kind of, you know, nice patina, a little bit annoying. Down here, we've got something that's about as annoying as finding your spouse in bed with an entire rugby team. When you drop a Tenere 700 on its side, the exhaust bends in slightly. And if you don't notice and don't bend it out again, when you ride off, the swing arm goes up, catches the exhaust, and it will rub. Now this has happened to me, but it's only rubbed through the powder coat on my swing arm. I then saw that and bent it out. If you don't notice that, it can gouge. It can really come knacky your swing arm. Luckily, the solution for this is to fit an aftermarket high mount exhaust. There's one from MIV, the Dakar, which is really well reviewed. That comes up here, it's about 300 quid. Sounds a bit better, alleviates the problem. There's also an HB Corsa one, which is 600 quid, does the same job. And when the bike falls over, they're so inboard, they don't get bent. Now, if you do that, you do have to fit a tail tidy, because that, with a high mount exhaust, puts your indicators right in the firing line if your CP2 engine's bum gas, so just bear that in mind. So yeah, I'll get an aftermarket exhaust, but otherwise around here there's some scrapes and scuffs on the exhaust. The link pipe has gone a bit brown, but this bike was caked in mud for 5 days with a few jet washes, and I've not properly cleaned any of this stuff because I plan on replacing the exhaust anyway. Aren't any rusty spokes or anything like this. This is all shiny and new. Yeah, it's it's a mixed bag. Okay, let's talk tyres. As standard, all T7s come on Pirelli Scorpion STR tyres, which are fine on dry gravel and dirt roads, and they're really good on the road actually, but they're not really cut out for plugging through muddy bogs with all the enthusiasm of Alan Titchmarsh. So what I've done is I've got a set of Bridgestone AX41s, and I've had these fitted from new actually, so I've not ridden this on the Scorpion STRs. I should probably go and get them from Yamaha at some point. But these, to start with, on the road, they're really good. They feel really confidence inspiring. I don't even think about them on the road. And we did some really fun twisty roads and we weren't worried about grip or anything like that. Admittedly, I've not ridden them in the wet yet. Off-road, to start with, they felt quite skittish and nervous in mud. They were quite slippery. And then we realised that we had them on the wrong tyre pressures for off-road. So road pressures are 35 both ends, PSI. And off-road, when you drop them to 25 PSI, they come alive, they start gripping, and they let us have a load of fun. But there was an hour or so at the start of the first day where we hadn't dropped them for off-road, and they didn't feel great. Obviously, you want to put them back up to road pressures for longevity when you've done off-road. But to be honest, even at 25 PSI on twisty roads, these feel really good. I've been really impressed by them. I don't think I'll get much more than 2,000, 2,500 miles out of a rear, but they're good tyres as far as my novice off-road experience can tell. Right, that's going to do it for my quick sum up of my first 1,200 miles on my Tenere 700 Rally 2025 model. I would say is if you're interested in hearing this bike run and seeing some actual footage of it, subscribe to my channel, because in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be putting out a video series where I take this through France, and I think it's going to be one of my best ones yet. We had such a great time. We went across rivers, through pretty valleys, we found amazing little hamlets and castles, we found stakes, getting jiggy with it. Like, get a room, you're in the middle of the path. Abandoned abbeys, we found the woods where some SES men were executed by the SS. There's a history angle on this whole trip as well. We go around Normandy, do some of the Saint-Mary-Église stuff. We see Dick Winters, well, actual Dick Winters, he's quite dead. But loads of interesting stuff happens on this tour. We go to the seaside, I get this serviced, talk about that a bit. And I've also got another video coming up where I'll show you all the stuff I packed for my trip and stuff I wore as well. So it's kind of like my first TET Trans-European Trail adventure video. So stay tuned for that. This falls over a couple of times. We have great fun. It's a bit of a laugh and we eat lots of food. And I can't wait to go and do it all again, hopefully in September. But anyway, that was a lot of talking. Thank you if you've got this far. If you've got any other questions about the bike or the trip, let me know. Leave them down in the comments. Subscribe, like, comment, share. I've said all that stuff about 3 times now. So I'm going to go home on my adventure bike with off-road tyre pressures and go to a cafe. Goodbye.